Hey everyone, I hope you're doing very well. Today I want to show you a flower that is usually very complicated to draw. It could be a flower like a rose, a peony, a flower that is basically multifaceted. It has loads of layers of petals. Where do you start? How do you layer them? Everything becomes so overwhelmingly complicated that sometimes we just get put off before we even start. So I decided to find a way to simplify a peony or any type of a flower of that nature and show you how you can create it. It's a super easy and fail-proof technique. So here I have a couple of examples. I will give you a step-by-step tutorial today, but basically what we're going to do first is we're going to create this stamped image, which is going to be our draft to work from. This is the skeleton, so to speak, of the finished painting. Then we will outline the flower if you want to have more of an illustrative style. Then we're going to add a little bit of color, and you can leave it at that if you prefer, for that very loose and kind of light watercolor effect. However, if you want to add more detail and bring it right to the finishing line, then I will show you what to do to add those gorgeous bits of color depth and playful value of the color tones. So what you will need to do in terms of media, we are going to focus on watercolor today, and I'm going to use my botanical palette, which I now have done a swatch card for, because I realized without it, it was just a mission. I kept going back to all the swatches, and if you watch the process of putting this botanical palette together, which is on my channel, I think mostly the videos are in the Friday watercolors series, but if not, or the Watercolor Friday series rather, but if not, then just have a look. In the past couple of weeks we've been tackling this palette, putting it together, swapping some colors, rearranging and doing a deep dive, and it's been super fun. But of course, when you just have a palette like that with no exact color swatch card there right next to it, it is, you know, a little bit difficult. Roughly I know most what the colors are, but I find that having a swatch card makes it a lot easier. For the details, I'm going to go in with another water soluble medium, and these are the Tombow water-based markers, which I absolutely love. They just go hand in hand when it comes to watercolor. They're fantastic because they have a brush tip on one side, which I tend to use basically all the time, and I forget about their fine tip, which you can create even finer details. So let's start by using the botanical stamp set. So this is available on my website alyonacreates.com, and you'll find all the other stamp sets if you wanted to play with color wheels and loads of other things. If you're new, I just thought I'll let you know. I'm also going to use my acrylic block. Also, I have them available on my website if you like. I love the round acrylic blocks. I find that a round acrylic block is kind of more organic. The shape allows me to hold it comfortably with my wrist and kind of rotate it in an easy way. So here are no corners, and I designed it in the size that is really easy to use, including my color wheels. So this round block fits them all, and the dolls and the face of the days, all of those fit beautifully. Right, so if you are wondering, very quickly off the track, these are, I just wanted to show you my faces. So here we go. So you can create these face illustrations. These are some of the other stamping blocks that you can find on my website. Again, another cute little face. So there's color theory, there is color palette, all sorts of great stuff. As you can see, we have different sizes of petals and variation of the edging. So if you wanted to create a more organic illustration and not have every single petal the same, although you can change it slightly as you're lining things out, just to give it a slightly different angle. If you wanted to change it up, you can do it like I have some examples here where I used different petals, mix them up and create different edging. So we have 4 types of these rounder petals, which you can create hibiscus flowers with, cherry blossom, apple blossom, any type of fruit flower, blossom, and then of course peonies and many more. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to use this petal here and that petal here, and that will be enough for this illustration. I'm going to use this center and I'm going to use a few leaves. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sizes of the leaf. So in terms of leaves, we have loads here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we have other more elongated ones, which you can also mix them in. And then here you could use these as leaves as well. You can also use them as like seed pods, depending how you turn them around. You could also use them as chilies. Okay, long introduction, but hopefully a very informative one. So we will start with the smaller petal, which is this one here. And that petal is going on the back, if you're new to that sort of a thing. And I'll show you what to do next. So first, I'm just going to do it, I think, in the middle today. Or maybe slightly more here. Okay. In case I wanted to use the page for something else later. So the ink I'm using is Tattered Rose by Distress Ink. It's a Tim Holtz. Well, the brand is Ranger, but it's designed by Tim Holtz. And it's the Distress Inks. Okay, so I'm going to create a 5 petal center, and what I'm doing is I am going to layer some of them. So I'm going to do 3 like so, and then I'm going to create maybe 2 more on each side, and this time I'm making sure that I don't overstamp. So I'm wiping with my finger where I don't want there to be any stamped lines, but honestly it's not a big deal, and you can correct things later on. So this is like a 5, well, let's do a 6. There we go. So you can see it's slightly layered, but it's fine. You can deal with it. You can highlight and you can also take some away. Okay, now onto the bigger petals. So that was this one, and this is the bigger petal. Like I said, if you wanted to go for a really, really organic look, then use more petals and you'll get more organic variation. So now I'm going to do the same about, I'd say, almost halfway. I'm going to wipe it off and stamp. So you have this like a larger petal peeping from the bottom. Same thing. And this time I'm layering the big petal slightly because you don't want to, you'll have a bigger gap then. If you wanted to build even a 3rd layer, of course you can do it. But today I'm just showing you a fast version. So always layering underneath as you go. The weather has cooled down a little bit here, which, to be honest with you, after about 3 weeks of solid heat, which I've really, really enjoyed and managed to get a nice suntan, I am good now to have a bit of a cool down weather and wear sweaters and jeans, but I hope it's not gonna last too long. I do love my summers and the heat. Okay, so here we go. Looks really organic. When you're looking at it, it doesn't look too kind of static or too plain. So that's what you want. You want a sense of realism to the point where you can recognize what it is, like what flower it is, but without going too realistic. So then we're going to use the center. Now the center is, you can rotate it whichever way you like. You can do straight, you can lay it down, really up to you. You can even create a bigger center by stamping it a few times. Sometimes what I do is I line it out as I stamped and then just add some sporadic couple of the marks, just to make it again look like it's not just being completely repeated from illustration to illustration. Also rotating it all creates an organic look. Right, so that's the flower. Now let me just show you a close-up. So we've built a lovely kind of structure and skeleton of the flower. Now we're going to focus on the leaves, and I am going to use a few leaves here. I'm definitely going to use the large leaf. That's the largest one. And I'm going to pop it here. Now remember that it depends how you like to illustrate. You can stamp it to come underneath, like out from the underneath. So that way again, wipe the bottom, stamp it. You can stamp it very close to the edge of the petal and create a cluster that way. Or sometimes what I like is have like a elongated vine come out. So that's what I'm going to do today. Also, I'm going to stamp another one slightly closer to the flower. Some of these leaves are designed so that you can twist and turn them around and have them like face slightly different. So I'm going to show you this one here. I could, for example, turn it around like that. I'm going to create a cluster. So I like the 4, and maybe here I do 3. This is meant to be like quick and fun. Don't overthink it. Personally, I think you can't go wrong with this type of illustration because it's just so much fun. And that's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be about having fun with your drawings and paintings. Okay, I'm going to do 5 here. Why not? So it's going to be beautiful and adorned with leaves and greenery. So let's have a look up and close. So we've got here something that looks like it's ready to be lined out. Right, so now we're coming to the portion of the illustration when we line things out. So the pen I'm going to use is the Platinum Carbon ink. I'll try to link everything that I can down below in the description. However, this pen is hard to come by as it's been discontinued. God knows why. It is a brilliant, brilliant invention, or it was. So if you can't have that, or if you don't have that, then another great option would be any type of fine liner, be it one of those micron pens. There's also Devons that do really fantastic. Let's see, I've got one here. Line maker. Go for a, I'd say 0.5 or 0.1 is probably where you want to be. If you're using like a textured paper, a 0.5 probably would be better. It'd be just smoother running across the paper. 0.1 would be better for smooth paper. So don't go for cold press. Go for hot press if you want to use a fine liner. Now, this one is fine either way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I focus on certain petals, how I highlight some of them, and how I push them into the background. So here you can see this is a fully stamped petal. So I'm going to go ahead and just line it out. And then we have the second petal going this way. I've done it slightly different. So generally what I do is the next petal would go under, 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 like I've done with the larger petals. Here I've done the 3, but you know, you can try both ways. And you can, you know, do it with, if you have, for example, a page full of these flowers, it'd be a good idea to mix it up anyway. So what I have here is, you know, 1 petal hiding underneath and then mostly 4 visible. Here mostly almost all of them are visible. Again, a bit more, the 5th one is popping out. And then here we have the 3 and the 3. So now the petals that are in between, I'm just going to line them out to the line. I'm not obviously going across because that line we don't need to see. And that line most likely will be covered by watercolor. And that will be fun part of it. So here you choose what you want. Do you want this petal to go down or do you want this? I'm going to go with this petal here being fully visible, and then the rest I will judge as I go. So basically these are going to go slightly like that. If you don't want everything to look the same, what I would do is now here I'm going to do a full petal, and what that creates is that this petal is now going to go underneath both of these petals. And also notice as I'm lining out, I'm not too strict. In fact, you could do a bit of a wiggled line, and that will just create a variety in the petal shape slightly. Again, you know, you don't have to constantly follow the line exactly. It's just there to help you. Okay, now I'm going to line out the leaves. I'm going to add a center line. And the way I do this usually is I focus where it's coming from. So I think what I'm going to do is I will connect this one first and then that one coming out. So you can see I'm not really taking that much time. This exercise is supposed to help you get there faster. So it's not about perfecting anything. It's not about making your life more difficult. It's there to help you get things done fast so you can move on to the fun part, which is the watercolor or adding any type of medium that you want to play with. Oftentimes the drawing part is just there. It's not the main attraction. Okay, so here we go. Looks super pretty. It's nice and easy. So for things like the middle, I tend to enjoy these pens more. They're less scribbly, they're very, very smooth, and they just get the pigment laid so quickly. So I'm going to show you. I'm just going to add a couple more here and there, although they were not stamped. So be your own designer in how you want things to be. So let's start with watercolor. I've got my swatch card right here off to the side so I can refer to it quickly. I have different mixtures here. Generally what I would do is I would go into a color like this, which is the Winsor & Newton Permanent Rose. It's a really beautiful, bright, it's kind of like a opera pink but less on steroids. And then I'd go into a puddle of pink here that already existed and just mix it in. So basically we're doing mixing, but it's easy mixing because we already have colors, so I just get it to the right tone that I like. And what I will do is I'll show you how I start painting. So I tend to just add a bit of color right here, which is basically the part that is going towards the center. And then I always make sure I have some sort of water control. So I've got a little lid here with a napkin, and then I'm going to just make sure I create a watercolor effect. Don't want too much color going to the outside of the petal, and just mostly clean water. I'm trying to maintain a lot of highlights here. I just like that effect. I think it looks more interesting, especially for illustration, rather than just have a solid color throughout. I think it can look overworked really quickly, and that's, you know, that's just, I guess, like individual preference. And then for the second layer, same thing. I'm just adding a bit of this color right into these kind of corners here to suggest slightly shadow effect from the petal that's sitting on top. So there we go. And then same thing, clean brush and just kind of moving things out. Just like that, making sure you don't have too many hard edges. And you need to work relatively quickly, because otherwise you will have those hard edges. Watercolor, when it's not too thick, when it's like not too much of it, then it tends to dry really quickly. Also depends on the country and the weather and everything. But this is our first layer, really easy. We're going to do the same thing for the leaves. And I've got a nice puddle here. I think I'm just going to go with that. Nice and simple. So again, I am strategically placing the watercolor right here, and I also might do it at the tip, so that way we are maintaining the center of the leaf. Now I will leave this cluster for now because the paint can start drying out, and I'm just going to go ahead and connect some of it, trying to maintain the highlights yet again. That's it. Really nice and easy and quick. Here we're going to do the same, both ends, like so. If you wanted this to be just one layer of watercolor, one and done, and not going back and adding any more details, if you just like that instant impact, then I would highly recommend to use stronger mixes and maybe some granulating colors that will give you that instant impact. Also, while things are wet, you can also just add a little bit more variation in color. So here is already dry. I'll show you what to do when it has dried up. In that case, you just take a brush, slightly wet, and just wiggle it around so you move the pigment so it doesn't just sit there. And that's it. Now you can't do anything other than waiting for it to dry. Again, like I said, you can leave it at that if you're happy. but I will show you what to do to get to this. While things are drying, I just wanted to show you how to kind of work with your proportions. So as I'm looking at this illustration, I really like how the vines are. However, having turned this leaf and it being quite large and sort of moving out to that direction, I feel like it's not enough of a balanced composition. So what I'm going to do, without taking off the stamping elements, I will addition a couple of leaves. So what I want to do is I want to bring a curvature into here to balance it out slightly, so it's not ending on this kind of like a almost slightly clumsy shape. So what I'm going to do is have a look at smaller leaves, and a leaf that would be good is this one because it's curving slightly that direction. Again, you could, if you wanted to, do the same thing and turn them upside down. You can see the way I designed them. They have these little black, almost like triangular shapes. This is to show you that that's the kind of the right way, but you can then rotate it. So you remember which way you stamped it. Did you stamp it the right way or the opposite way? That's why it's there. So this leaf here works beautifully. It is also small. I want something dainty and small here. And again, audition. So this is coming out too much. I want it to come in like so. Here we go. Quite close to it. So back in, and I'm going to connect it to this big, let's call him the clumsy leaf. So hopefully you can see how this looks so much more kind of balanced now. Without it, there's something a little bit like off. Okay, so let's go in with the green. I've got some left here. And then I'm just going to add a touch more. All right, that is quite cute. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of color here and there. So what I have here is a number of things. So I kind of feel like I'm a little bit in a playful mood. So I think I might change it up and not do exactly the same thing as here. But I'll tell you what I've done here. So I've used these colors right here. So this pink is this color. Let me just find... Oh, here it is, the sketchbook where I keep all the names of the swatches, because unfortunately Tombow doesn't write them down. They only have numbers. So this is the 772 and it's the blush color. It's like a pale, dusty type of a pink, and it works beautifully with this kind of pinks. You can just add a little bit more texture if you wanted to. And then I used this very bright pink, and that is from one of the newer colors that I got. It's not new to the line, it's new to me. 755, that's the ruby red right here. And then those darker elements, I used my all-time favorite 757, which is this one, port red. Highly recommended. It looks so beautiful in its deepest tone and in its lightest tone. Then for the leaves, I've used two greens, well actually one green and another like a yellow ochre type of color, like a mustardy color. 158, which is dark olive right here. They also have 228, which is a grey green, but this has a little bit more green in there. And then I've used this gorgeous color, is 026 yellow gold, so it's right there. Now I feel like playing around a little bit and adding a bit of orange. Don't know if I'm going to love it or hate it, but let's see. So this is the 946 Gold Ochre. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start in the same manner. Also keep in mind we're going over watercolor and it's transparent, so I'm just going to change the orange color slightly, and hopefully we'll like it. So with Tombows, best thing to do is get your brush and your water ready, and then just create a little wet puddle so the color moves out. So what we're doing here is called glazing, but instead of using watercolor to glaze with, so you see it's a little bit warmer tone and it's actually quite pretty, we're using a water soluble medium, so in this case markers. That is quite pretty actually. I do like that. So I'm going to stay within the theme and just add a little bit of this kind of detail, almost like a veining of the petal. And those that don't have like a little corner here, I'm just going to go a little bit on top of the line, not on top but along the line like this. And same thing, water. The key here is you don't want to be fussing about too much. You just want to add a nice little puddle of water and move quickly. If it's too much, then just use your control, and then you can also take it up onto the petal with this sort of brush mark making, and that looks quite pretty. So it's kind of creating that peach effect. Okay, so that's all done. I'm still going to go with the darkest element just in the middle, but for that we need to be certain everything is completely dry. So at this point I can move on to the greens, and let's see, do I want to change anything up? I'm going to refer to my green colors, and that is a light olive 126. Let's see, 126. Okay, so I might use a bit of that. Might blend in too much to be honest, but we'll see. We'll see. I do like this mustardy color. I think that would be quite pretty, and I do like this chartreuse. So I'm going to bring in a bit of chartreuse. My worry is that we don't have too dark of a color. So let's see how we get on if we need more contrast here. So yeah, see, that's not too dark, but it's actually darker. So look, it's darker than the color that we have laid already. So it's kind of, yeah, it will work. So what I'm doing here is again corner, tip, like the bottom and the tip, and then I'm just going to add little speckles of this chartreuse green just to lift things and brighten them slightly. And then I'm going to go in with this color just over a few areas like that. Just very little, not too much. And I think that works quite nicely. So again, a little bit of water. Let it do its own thing. With Tombows, I like the fact that you just need to add a dollop of water and leave it. It will blend, it will move a little bit. And then also here, I just will run my brush right in the middle where I placed that line here. And I will repeat that here as well. So what you can see compared to here, it's less saturated. So you can go different directions with it. Okay, so let's do the green again. Tip and bottom, tip and bottom. And then on the middle line, just ever so slightly, like that. And then tiny bit of chartreuse in the lighter areas, so it will pop more. Like so, and then we're going to go with the darker. So what I said before, you can also go to the right tip of it and just add a few kind of blemishes or a few marks like that, very, very lightly, just here and there. I won't do it on this leaf, so you can see. Let me bring you a bit closer. So we've got those blemishes. Often you can see them on eucalyptus, these kind of little dots. And then just running my brush over them will melt them slightly without kind of completely dissolving them. And it just looks super pretty, in my opinion. Here we go. Okay. So, see how adding tiny little bit of detail really does kind of create a beautiful effect. So here I have more contrast on the petals, and I think I'm going to do that exact same step here, but I don't know if I should go with the same color or the orange. Let's see, I'll try the orange first because it's lighter than the dark, and if I think it's not enough, then I can always top it up with the darker color. So, oh, it's actually quite pretty. Yeah, I'll keep it with the orange and the dark part just in the middle right there. So I'm going to go ahead and add this orange throughout most part. I'm not pulling it right to the end because you don't need that. You don't want there to be a solid line. This is so much better than without. So I'm going to also bring this. You probably want to start from the smaller leaves, which I've done in the other illustrations, but sometimes the curiosity gets the better of me, and I get carried away. And I want to try a different way. Okay, so think about, again, maintaining the highlights, and this just to be right here at the edge of the petal, and the rest still staying nice and light. You don't want to take this color too far into the center of the leaf, or the petal rather. So just like that. That's it. And then I'm going to take that darkest color and just add it very much right close to the center on the edge. I want to keep that beautiful peach right there, which we already have, which was achieved with watercolor and the markers, but just intensifying it. So not too much at all. Just you can use those dots to go around like so and create a little bit more texture on the leaves. So there you go. That is our beautiful, whatever flower you want it to be. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and a beautiful and easy way of illustrating super multi-layered, petaled, beautiful flowers. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.